In this episode of American Greed, Ed Shin is a family man, a churchgoer, a tech entrepreneur, and an all-American type living the California dream.
I could tell that Ed was driven.
But when his business partner suddenly vanishes, a PI takes a closer look and finds a liar, a thief, and maybe even a killer.
The blood tells a story.
Tonight, for the first time, the full story of Ed Shin's dark past, straight from the victims themselves.
He was such a scary guy.
For too long, their warnings go unheeded.
They just keep getting away with it, and they keep getting more bold.
But when detectives find evidence of bloodshed,
blood is getting flung onto the ceiling.
the real Ed Shin is finally revealed.
I mean, when does the insanity end?
In Orange County, California, in June 2011, private investigator Joe Dalu is on what seems like just another routine case. He's tracking a small business owner who moved out of his office without paying rent, left the place a mess, and is now in the wind. Dalu's client is the landlord of this building right along Interstate 5.
They advised us that one of their tenants, Ed Shin, skipped out on their lease early and was in the rears about $40,000. So we helped them try to locate Ed Shin. We want to find out as much as possible who we're looking for. And that might be just through database searches. You check out any property they may own, social media.
Ed Shin, it appears, is a fairly typical Orange County striver. He has a wife, 3 kids, and a 4th on the way. He plays golf. And speaking of irons, he's got a lot of them in the fire.
What we learned is there was a lot to Ed's portfolio regarding property, regarding vehicles, businesses, shell corporations.
Dalu learns that Ed Shin is one of the owners of 800 Exchange, a lead generation business. The type of TV commercial they create may be familiar.
Are you drowning in debt? Do you owe the IRS more than $10,000? Call 1-800-555-1212.
Every down-on-their-luck consumer who picks up the phone is money in Ed Shin's pocket, as 800 Exchange sells the contact lists to class-action attorneys and debt consolidators.
They were making hand over fist money just coming in left and right.
Dalu is about 2 weeks into tracking Ed Shin when he learns something shocking. Shin's business partner in 800 Exchange, Chris Smith, hasn't been seen in nearly a year.
It definitely raises the flag a little bit, absolutely. Just because someone's missing, it's not a crime to go missing, but it's definitely going to raise some questions, yes. Chris was very spirited. He was a surfer, very close to his family.
Dalu learns that last summer, Chris Smith emails friends and family with great news. He's cashed out of 800 Exchange for a cool $1 million, and he's finally doing what he wants, sailing around the world on a 40-foot yacht.
That free spirit, the way surfers are, they just get up and go. So it wasn't uncommon for him just to be off on a new adventure, but what was uncommon was the phone calls or the lack of phone calls.
Instead of calls home, there are emails, lots of them, to his mom, dad, and brother. And at first, Chris's tone is upbeat. I finally found what I love, moving around and seeing the whole world. I can't believe I almost trapped myself. Chris writes that he's sailing to South America, around Cape Horn, and then north to the Caribbean. That fall, Chris leaves the boat and flies to Europe. And it's here that his emails home turn darker. Chris writes his dad, "This last year has been the worst year of my life. I even contemplated suicide." Chris's last email to his family is December 26, 2010. He says he's in South Africa, and he's planning to sell a large amount of Krugerrands, gold coins that he's purchased. He writes, "Just realized it's Christmas. It's summer down here. I'm headed back up through the Congo. I found a dealer in Rwanda that will pay 30% markup on Krugs." Rwanda? Gold deals? Thinking that Chris has lost his mind, or worse, the Smith family reports him missing to the police department in Laguna Beach, where Chris lived in this waterfront apartment building. And that's how Ed Shin, Chris's former business partner, comes to sit in a cramped interrogation room with two detectives. They tell Shin that Chris's family is extremely concerned.
And then, for me, I'm not as worried because I have a cousin who did exactly what Chris did.
Oh, really?
High-pressure parents.
Unlike the case of his cousin, Shin says it wasn't family but work that was bothering Chris, and he wanted to step back. Shin says that he bought his partner out, but they're still in touch by email, and in fact, he's been sending Chris some of the installments of the buyout.
I wired some money to India, so I know, if he was there and he accessed it, then he was there. And, when I get the wire records, I'll give them to you.
When Joe DeLue first sees this interview, a year has passed since Chris Smith vanished. DeLue, who once worked as a cop for Laguna Beach before becoming a PI, says his former colleagues dropped the ball. For example, they never verify Shin's claim of wiring money to Chris Smith.
So as she's taking this, she should be thinking, great, let's follow up on that. But it's later on that there was no follow through. She had the right intentions, but for whatever reason, she didn't follow through with that, which would have been critical in his statement.
Laguna Beach PD declined to speak to American Greed. This will be the last time they interview Ed Shin.
We're putting his DNA on file. We're putting his dental. That's the stuff we can do.
Cool.
But I can't fly the volley. or I'd like to, but I don't think the budget is. We have the budget for that.
We tried.
Yeah, we tried.
And we just going to be an open case until we hear from him.
Chris's parents, frustrated by the lack of answers, hear about DeLue's investigation into the deadbeat tenant Ed Shin. The family decides they'd like to hire DeLue too, to track Chris. They believe that somewhere out there, he is still alive.
In their mind, and still clinging to hope, maybe he's sick, maybe he's in jail, maybe something happened. Could be kidnapping. He's talking about going to some pretty dangerous places.
DeLue pores over hundreds of emails that Chris's dad, Steve, has shared with the investigator.
When I asked Steve, well, are you sure it's Chris? He says, well, yeah, he's using words that only Chris would use.
But at one point, Steve does harbor doubts, and he challenges Chris to prove his identity.
And he said, son, if this is you, tell me what boat pulled you skiing and what lake you grew up on as a kid.
A few days later, the answer comes back.
Haha, if this is a test question, then I'll tell you about Kelly Lake. I think Steve was satisfied with that one answer because he answered something that he knew, Kelly Lake. But he never answered the boat description. And that immediately hit me.
DeLue's concern deepens when he reads that Chris is pumping his brother Paul for the same information.
Hey, bro, I think Ed got into my email. Just to make sure it's you, what boat pulled us skiing? Paul answered it. And then I said right then and there, he needed to get the answer. So that was the aha moment for me.
DeLue believes the trauma of Chris's disappearance has blinded the Smith family to what's obvious to him. Something bad has happened to Chris. And someone is pulling a con on his family by pretending to be him. If so, who? Ed Shin says he doesn't know anything.
So you had nothing to do with hurting him prior to leaving the country, did you? Did you hurt him?
No.
You never got in any physical fights with him while in the office?
Never.